Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Shuddha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Shuddha Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we're reading from Canto 6, Chapter 9, The Appearance of the Demon Vritrasura, text 4 through 7. So I'll read the Sanskrit and the translation for 4, 5, and 6, and then Seth, we can do the back and forth with the text 7. So yeah, 6-9, starting with 6-9-4. Tadeva helanam tasya dharmalikam sureshvaraha alakya tadasa pitas tachchirsanya chinadrisha. Once upon a time, however, the king of heaven, Indra, understood that Vishvarupa was secretly cheating the demigods by offering oblations on behalf of the demons. He became extremely afraid of being defeated by the demons, and in great anger at Vishvarup, he cut Vishvarupa's 3 heads from his shoulders. Text 5. Somapitam tuyatasya shira asit kapinjalaha kalavinkasura pitam anadamya satirtirihi. Thereafter, the head meant for drinking somarasa was transformed into a kapinjala, falcon partridge. Similarly, the head meant for drinking wine was transformed into a kalavinka, sparrow, and the head meant for eating food became a titiri, common partridge. Ramahatyam Anjalina Jagraha Yadapishvaraha Sarante Tad Agham Bhutanam Savishudhaye Pumyam Bujrimayoshidhyas Chaturdhavya Bajadarihi. Though Indra was so powerful that he could neutralize the sinful reactions for killing a Brahmana, he repentantly accepted the burden of these reactions with folded hands. He suffered for 1 year, and then to purify himself, he distributed the reactions for the sinful killing among the earth, water, trees, and women. Okay, now we can do back and forth with this one. Seth. Pumisturiyam jagraha. Sorry, I should have been clear. So I'll say it and then you can repeat the same line. So, okay, first one. Pumis turiyam jagraha kata pura varenavai hirinam pramahatyaya rupam pumo padishyate pumis turiyam jagraha kata pura varenavai hirinam pramahatyaya rupam pumo padishyate pumis turiyam jagraha kata pura varenavai hirinam pramahatyaya rupam pumo pradishyate. Okay, so now you can say it and then I'll repeat. Pumisturiyam jagraha kata pura varenavai hirinam brahmahatyaya rupam pumo pradishyate. Taraka Prabhu, would you like to say the verse?
I would indeed. Pumisturiyam jagraha
Pumisturiyam jagraha
kata pura varenavai
kata pura varenavai
hirinam brahmahatyaya
hirinam brahmahatyaya
rupam bhuma padrishyate.
rupam pumo pradishyate. Thank you. James, would you like to say it? Or are you in the middle of something? I'm assuming that's you, James, on iPhone 1. Maybe not. Okay, we can continue. Word for word. Bhumi, the earth. Sorry, bhumi, and then you can say it like, so I'll say in the word for word translation, I'll say the Sanskrit, you say it, and then I'll say the English, you say it. So bhumi, the earth. Turiyam, 1/4. Jagraha, accepted. Hatapura, of the filling of holes. Varena, because of the benediction. Phi, indeed. Hirinam, the deserts. Pramahatyaya, of the reaction for killing a brahmana. Rupam, form. Pumo, on the earth. Padrishyate, is visible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: in return for King Indra's benediction that ditches in the earth would be filled automatically, the land accepted 1/4 of the sinful reactions for killing a brahmana. Because of those sinful reactions, we find many deserts on the surface of the earth. Purport: because deserts are manifestations of the earth's diseased condition, no auspicious ritualistic ceremony can be performed in a desert. Persons destined to live in deserts are understood to be sharing the reactions for the sin of Brahmahatya, the killing of a brahmana. Om Jnana-timanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare. I just want to write down one note of something I wanted to bring up in this class, but I don't want to forget. Okay, so my first reaction upon reading this verse was, man, I really like the desert. I like dry heat, but it is a manifestation of the Earth's disease condition. Um, and yeah, it's true that, so many auspicious ceremonies are actually based on, you have to have resources. You have to have like, I mean, pretty much nowhere on the planet now are the resources required. Well, yeah, the resources required for sacrifice are not available, whether it's like wealth or natural opulences, things like that. But in Vedic times, and I guess we could still see it that, comparatively, deserts are depleted of really any resources. Of course, there's probably some things you could use sand for or whatever else, some kind of shrubs that grow in the desert. But by and large, there's not much water for purification, not many herbs or plants or anything you could really use. But people do live here. Um, it's pretty amazing. I remember, yeah, in the Middle East, I've been to a desert, and just the way people live like nomadic lifestyles is so um it's so amazing, like to just see, I guess anytime you travel, just to see how different people live. Like really, human beings are very resourceful and can live like practically anywhere. And we could see that on a cosmic scale too, that, all the 400,000 different types of human beings, they're dispersed all over the planetary systems in all different kinds of conditions. So, like Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that there's living entities even on the sun planet. And it's like, what? How could there be? How? That's impossible, Everything burns up in the sun. But even scientists found like at the bottom of the ocean, there's all those like, I guess they're like geysers or something. They're like, I mean, I guess the gas or whatever that's coming out is like so hot. Like it's like hundreds of degrees or something like that. Um, and there's living entity. They found living entities in that. So it's like, one day something's impossible, and then the next day, even materially scientists are saying, oh, well, guess what? We found something that lives at the very bottom of the ocean with no sunlight, or we found living entities out of this geyser in the bottom of the ocean, or um, this or that. So who's to say that, a living entity can't exist on the sun planet, or living entities can't exist on any other planet, even humanoid living entities on other planets. So anyway, going back to the point of the desert, yeah, the way people live, just like, having just basic frameworks, I guess, of a house and then like tarps covering it, and you have like whole families living in there. Not even because they're just like, oh, they're so poor that they have to live out there, but it's like they choose to. That's their lifestyle. They have like some donkeys, um, I guess to transport things like this and that. Um, and I guess they choose that way of life. Like they're content living out there. Of course, we know that also based on the modes of material nature, like, all living entities are functioning according to their karma and the different modes. So it's also like Krishna's arrangement that people are living in those conditions that people would even choose to live in the desert. But yeah, it's a very simple situation. So anyway, I'm not going to go on much more about deserts and talking. Yeah, people living in deserts. But something that I got from this verse is I was thinking about the previous translations that Um, oh, so the text before this says, although Indra was so powerful that he could neutralize the sinful reactions for killing a Brahmana, he repentantly accepted the burden of these reactions with folded hands. Yeah. So, and then it says he suffered for 1 year, and then to purify himself, he distributed the reactions for this sinful killing among the earth, water, trees, and women. And I wanted to look up this verse. I was trying to think of it. This morning, yeah. So it was the verse I thought. So I was reminded in Srimad Bhagavatam of the verse 10:14:8 that yeah, most devotees know, and Prabhupada quotes quite often. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagvapur vir vidadhan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade siddhaya bhak. So here in the verse we read today is the translation is speaking about how Indra, he could have counteracted or neutralized the sinful reactions for killing a Brahmana. He's that powerful. But he still accepted the burden of these reactions with folded hands. And then he suffered, but yeah, and then to purify himself, he distributed the reactions, but basically he just accepted that curse. And I've been reading the first canto and also listening to the lectures from Dave Marisa Mirage, like in order on SoundCloud, if you look up his lectures, Canto 1, then can listen to all of them in order. And he's speaking about, how Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by the Brahmana boy Shringi. Do you remember that pastime? In the first canto, like, yeah, he's cursed to die in 7 days, and then he went to the he went to the Brahmana, the sage, and he wanted some water. And then the sage was like in meditation, didn't give it to him. So then he puts a dead snake around his neck. And then the sage's, son, the Brahmana boy, Shringi, he curses Parikshit Maharaj to die in 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj is definitely capable of counteracting that curse. He's so powerful and he's such a powerful devotee. He has Krishna on his side, but he accepted that curse as Krishna's arrangement. And also it's Krishna's in yeah, it's under a different kind of Maya, so not Mahamaya, but Yoga Maya. So Krishna's like pastime potency. So, all of this is going on so that for many reasons, so that Srimad Bhagavatam can be spoken for our benefit, so that Kali Yuga can enter, because while Parikshit Maharaj was king, he was such a great ruler, such a great Kshatriya, that Kali Yuga could not enter while he was ruling. And so one might ask, well, why is this Krishna's arrangement that, Parikshit Maharaj gets cursed to die? Why would Krishna want Kali Yuga to enter? But it's actually not so much Krishna that wants Kali Yuga to enter, but the living entities. We want Kali Yuga. Um, and it's actually, I've been thinking and just reading different quotes on, like, I think I was reading the beginning of like the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, because it was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's, was it his disappearance day? On what was that, Wednesday? So that's Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, there, right in the back, all the way to the left, yeah. So I was reading, it's like his biography. Um, and one of the first things, like it was like he was born, born at this time in this location, and then his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then it just immediately like launched into, I think it was talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but talked like led into quotes, different quotes about how in Kali Yuga, like actually, yeah, there's no good qualities. There's nothing good about Kali Yuga other than the fact that by chanting Hare Krishna, one can go back to Godhead, and applying the process, one can go back to Godhead very easily. So great saints and sages worship Kali Yuga for that reason. And so I've been thinking about that and just seeing this theme come up in different places that actually, um, it's like such an unfortunate situation to be born in Kali Yuga if you're just, yeah, materially existing. But it's such a fortunate situation actually because one has the chance to go back to Godhead very easily, and the demigods even want to take birth as human beings. Um, is it specifically in Kali Yuga or in general? Anyway, because on the heavenly planets, the enjoyment's so good, and you could be there just for so long because you're just in La La Land, basically. But on the earth, there's like mixed happiness and distress. And it's Mrityu Loka, so the world of death. Our lifespans are short, but if one applies himself in Kali Yuga to chanting, to trying to understand God, Krishna, then one can go back to Godhead in a very short amount of time. So, how did I get into that? Anyway, I just been thinking about how fortunate we are actually in Kali Yuga that like, okay, all hell is breaking loose around us and also internally all hell is breaking loose. And maybe it feels like that amongst relationships or yeah, on all fronts in Kali Yuga, it's just chaotic and it's like degraded chaos. But if one uses all of that as impetus to just like, let me just wrap things up in this life. I'm not coming back, let's just like tie a bow on it and we're done with having a material body. So it's actually we're so fortunate in that way. And then if we can even try to help a few other people, or not even that we want to help them really, that's like, even that takes a soft heart that I have not yet manifest. But even if just on the order of the spiritual master, or really whatever motivation you have, whether it's like, oh, I want to look good to the devotees, or my spiritual master, wants this, that should be the primary motivation. But of course, we're, yeah, still conditioned to some extent. Um, then one should, one can use whatever impetus you have to try to give Krishna to others. So, yeah, that can look in so many different ways. Like yesterday, went on book distribution, and man, I was getting so rejected because in state college it was, people are about to graduate on Sunday, or they're going home to see their families. Like all the international students were like, "Yep, I'm leaving. I'm going back to Turkey. I'm going back to Cyprus, India, this, that, and the other." And so people were just like, they're on their way out. They're not really going to stop and pay me much mind because they're already getting a sense of like novelty and excitement from being done with school, or, going on a holiday or something. So anyway, it was tough. And I was like, man, I haven't experienced this at this spot yet because usually people are quite receptive. So I was standing there and I'm like, don't eat those ginger snaps that are on the table just because you feel sad that you're getting rejected. Just keep going. Because I was listening to this lecture by Brigupati Prabhu, amazing. He's speaking about Sankirtan, and he was just saying, well, this is true for all of our services too, that just the endeavor is is the perfection. That he was saying, Prabhupada, Prabhupada said this, that just by, and he was saying it in the context of Sankirtan, but just by our endeavor, that's the perfection. It's not so much the score or anything like this and that. Of course, Krishna can see, our spiritual master can see, and we should try to cultivate enough self-awareness that we can see when we're actually trying our best. One person's capacity might look different from another's, but that, yeah, just endeavoring with conviction is actually the perfection of any service. And it becomes very clear on Sankirtan because it's like, wow, when I'm getting so rejected and nothing's happening, this and that, then it's easy to just like opt out. I don't want to do this, or I'll do it with like half enthusiasm now, and people could feel that. So then people aren't stopping even more because I just like, but if I was remembering yesterday, I'm like, no, no, the endeavor is the perfection. So I just kept going, kept going. And those days when it's like, it feels like I'm trying to think if I can feel this in another service. Anyway, it's pretty obvious in book distribution that if you keep going with the service and you feel like nothing's happening at all, like no books are going out, or just like they're not like great exchanges. It's just kind of like, oh, this person felt bad for me, and the next one was just like not that into it, and maybe they felt a little coerced, and then the next person. So the exchanges aren't super nectar. But then by the end, you're like, wow, I did just as many actually as I would do on like a so-called good day, but it doesn't yeah, feel that way. So anyway, my point is that I've had a lot, and I was remembering I've had a lot of days like that actually where you know you're thinking that you're not getting any results, and maybe that can be from another service. Maybe devotees have some examples of how they've experienced this in other services, or you feel like, oh, I'm not really getting the results that I want, or my consciousness isn't where I want it to be. But you just keep going. You just keep like, okay, well, but this is my service, so let me just keep going. And then by the end, it's like something actually pretty good comes out, and you're like, wow, actually, pretty amazing things can happen if you just like continue on and are steady. So I was getting a little bit of that realization um, yesterday. And there was something else I wanted to say about that, but I can't remember. Getting rejected, determination. Don't know. I really go on tangents. So Anyway, coming back to this verse, this is related. So basically, whatever comes, a devotee's duty is to do their duty. So I was just reading, yeah, this verse 10, 14, 8. I did the Sanskrit, and then the translation is, My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Um, yeah, I can read a little bit of the purport. So, purport, Srila Sridhar Swami explains in his commentary that just as a legitimate son has to simply remain alive to gain an inheritance from his father, one who simply remains alive in Krishna consciousness, following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. In other words, he will be promoted to the kingdom of God. Um, So this point about simply remaining alive. So one, I've heard it said multiple times in bhakti, one just has to stay alive in bhakti, or just stay in the association of devotees. And in that way, one will be in the fire of devotional service and getting purified. Of course, it's better if we really like put our heart into it, then rapid advancement can take place. Um, but Sorry, I just remembered the previous point I wanted to make, but I'm not going to go back now. So one has to remain simply alive, and then one can gain the inheritance from his father. So go back to Godhead. It says, in other words, he will be promoted to the kingdom of God. But yeah, duty consciousness is so important in bhakti, and it's something that honestly is pretty foreign to me. Like increasingly, actually, in Kali Yuga and growing up, especially in the Western world, like nobody has a duty to anybody. It's just like you should not feel obligated. You need to do what you want to do. You're not obligated to your husband, to your wife. You can have an open marriage. You can get divorced as many times as you want. Your kids, you're not really obligated to them. You didn't make, okay, you had them on accident. You didn't really want them. I mean, first thing is get an abortion. And then after that, if you decide to keep the kid or yeah, whatever happens, then yeah, it's even being promoted a lot, especially for women now. There's like this narrative going on that, essentially don't let your kids stop you. Don't let your kids ruin your life. Just you can still go out and do what you want to do, this, that, and the other. You could still work like a full-time job. There were so many families in New Zealand. Of course, I've never had a child. I don't know what it's like, but I'm noticing that it's an increasing trend that both parents are working all day as like, some kind of corporate jobs. And in New Zealand, it's very common that people hire an au pair or like a nanny. Quite a few devotees were working. Madhapan Leela was working as a nanny for a while. And the parents they're not even out. The parents are home. They're like home in each of their, you know, home offices, their private internet enclaves. And and the nanny's just with the kids all day. And like the kids could, want to see their parents throughout the day, or like they know that they're home, this and that. But uh yeah, the parents are just like absorbed in work. Um, and it's just quite sad to see. And then you also have like social media or, sorry, like devices, and in Philly, we would always take the subway and I'd always see the moms with their kid, their toddler, like trying to climb on them, trying to play with their mom, like touching their face, just trying to engage, get some love, get some reciprocation from the mom. And the mom's on her device and is like pushing the kid away, like, can you stop bothering me, basically, or just like sit there and I'm gonna, watch whatever movie or TikTok or whatever I'm looking at. And then the kid, oh my gosh, if you ever seen a kid like that the parent is on their phone and they might be just scrolling through TikToks, like looking, there's like teenage girls doing these like dances and so many things. And then the kid, I've watched babies do this too. Like they get, and I guess, those of you with kids on this call can also probably say more, but I have never seen like how much kids can get absorbed in something, like where their eyes just get so big, especially like, I don't know, maybe like ages 4 or 3 and under, where they just get like so fixed and like their mouths open and eyes get so wide. And I'm just like watching babies watch TikToks and like imagining all that information that's being downloaded. Not only is the information, not good or not favorable, especially for like that small of a child, but also just the pace at which things are being the information is being delivered. There's like music going on and there's the picture and it's going so fast. I'm just like, man, that is so, would so mess up like that baby's brain, or if you don't want to say mess up, at least like just wire the child differently, that then their baseline for how fast information should be coming in and out is is at an unnatural level. Like if you're raising a child even 50 years ago, then the pace at which information is having to be assimilated is much slower. So, we have so many things. Like yesterday, I was talking to a devotee about ADHD, and there's so many, like, not so many, but there's just like this, I don't want to say narrative. More people are talking about how ADHD is a trauma response or as a result of, yeah, just the pace at which information, like we're trying to multitask the phone, like we're just getting so much stimulus. So then people are just like acquiring the symptoms of ADHD, even if they weren't like born that way. And it's just another sign to me that this world is like just becoming so unnatural, actually. And humans are being pushed to do things that their body and mind cannot handle in a healthy way. So anyway, I was bringing up kids for some man. I really keep going on tangents today. I was bringing up kids just to say that yes, I was saying about how they get absorbed and like how I had seen kids on the nannies and like kids on the subway, just that maybe, parents are having the children, but they don't, yeah, it's like they're having them and then they don't really want them, or or society's just set up in such a way that like both parents have to work just to be able to make ends meet, and then the child raising is outsourced. It's like a corporation, a business. Like, okay, well, how can we, this is something we have to do. We have to, and it's taking up a lot of our time and resources on the internal company side. So how can we outsource this to, how can we outsource our IT to the IT wallas in India like that or something? So it's like, okay, we need to do our jobs, but we also have kids. So how can we like outsource that? And of course, like I said, I've never had kids, so obviously, like, take help where you can get it, as your mother, your mother-in-law, or whoever, you want to hire a babysitter, something like that. Of course, like all good parents do need a break, but I'm just noticing more and more, like I said, especially in New Zealand, I would see all the time, like, even when parents did have time to spend with their kids, that it's still like outside of their working time, that they would still just have the nanny. Like at that point, they're just so accustomed to it that it's like, well, why doesn't the nanny also just take care of the kids on the weekends as well? Even though we do have time to spend with them. And it's just, yeah, it's just sad. And I've been thinking, like nothing can replace um, the biological, well, I don't want to say that because they might be adopted, but you need like the primary nurture, and it's nice if that's like your biological mother, father. I hope I'm not saying anything out of line. So, the word susamikshamana indicates that a devotee earnestly awaits the mercy of the Supreme Lord even while suffering the painful effects of previous sinful activities. Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee who fully surrenders unto him is no longer liable to suffer the reactions of his previous karma. However, because in his mind a devotee may still maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality, the Lord removes the last vestiges of the enjoying spirit by giving his devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions. The purpose of the entire creation of God is to rectify the living entity's tendency to enjoy without the Lord, and therefore the particular punishment given for a sinful activity is specifically designed to curtail the mentality that produced the activity. Although a devotee has surrendered to the Lord's devotional service until he is completely perfect in Krishna consciousness, he may maintain a slight inclination to enjoy the false happiness of this world. The Lord therefore creates a particular situation to eradicate this remaining enjoying spirit. This unhappiness suffered by a sincere devotee is not technically a karmic reaction. It is rather the Lord's special mercy for inducing his devotee to completely let go of the material world and return home back to Godhead. Wow. A sincere devotee earnestly desires to go back to the Lord's abode. Therefore, he willingly accepts the Lord's merciful punishment and continues offering respects and obeisances to the Lord with his heart, words, and body. Such a bona fide servant of the Lord, considering all hardship a small price to pay for gaining the personal association of the Lord, certainly becomes a legitimate son of God, as indicated here by the words Taya Bak. Just as one cannot approach the sun without becoming fire, one cannot approach the Supreme Pure, Lord Krishna, without undergoing a rigid purificatory process, which may appear like suffering, but which is in fact a curative treatment administered by the personal hand of the Lord. So nice to read this in association with devotees because I'm getting so much more out of it, even personally. And yeah, just this point also that I've been thinking about that one we actually are looking for connection both with others and with Krishna. We're not looking for perfection. So a lot of the times, at least I myself, being a recovering perfectionist, um, we might want to like, what's that saying? Like, uh, cross all your T's, dot all your I's, something like that. Just, have everything, okay, this is exactly what, the books say, or, yeah, and then we're just like always measuring ourselves up to that, which is great. We should know the ideal, but we also shouldn't condemn ourselves if sometimes we're falling short. It's a process. We're coming to the perfectional platform. We are not already perfect. Otherwise we would be in Goloka Vrindavan already, which we are living in Vaikuntha atmosphere. So now we're just working on the internals matching the externals of this Vaikuntha atmosphere. So, yeah, but the point is that we, just like I was saying about duty, oh, that's the point I was making before about duty consciousness, that yeah, it's so absent from today's world. And I notice it in myself that I'm just like, duty consciousness. I have like no basis for that in material life. I mean, maybe I do to some degree, like having to persevere in school or something, but that's because that's like according to my sense gratification. There's not too much that I've experienced in terms of duty consciousness and just steadfastly persevering, even if things might be against your sense gratification, um, in out of obligation to another living entity. That's why I brought up kids, or in a marriage, or family, business. Yeah, and like I was saying last week, in Vedic times, one would keep a promise even if it wasn't in their favor anymore, which is, yeah, that's like crazy. I mean, that's duty consciousness. But in Krishna consciousness, yeah, a very essential part is duty consciousness. So I was giving the example of the service, getting rejected so much. We continue on. There's so many services here as well. Like devotees have been sick lately, and they're still going about their services with determination, doing them very nicely. Um, and then just in general, staying in the fire of bhakti, continuing on despite like this verse I'm reading from is saying, despite so many what appear to be sinful reactions, but actually for a sincere devotee, they're things personally administered by Krishna in order to rectify us and realize, oh, these things that I wanted in the past or maybe currently want actually will not bring me happiness, are not for my benefit. And then I wanted to read one other verse from this is 11:237. So this is another famous verse. I really like this verse. I am, what's the meaning? I am Anyway, I won't say it with me. Vayam dvitiya viniveshita syat ishadapetasya viparyoyo smriti tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyai klayesham gurudevata. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. It is his very worshipable as his worshipable deity and his very life and soul. Um, yeah, so anyway, I didn't really want to read the purport, although it's very nice. You can read it in your own time. But also, when I was reading today's verse, somehow I thought of this verse in the 11th canto. I think I was actually trying to think of the previous one, which was the Tate Nukampam Susvekshana. But this one came to mind is the because I also like this one as the Bhayam Dviti Yabiniveshitasyad. So yeah, and it also relates to, you know, fearfulness and what is the basis of our Krishna consciousness. Um, fear is because of absorption in the body and in the illusory energy. And then fearlessness is based on connection with the Supreme Lord, with Krishna. So when the living entity turns away from the Supreme Lord, then it becomes a bewildering, fearful condition. Um, so yeah, and intelligent persons should engage unflinchingly, again, well, with duty consciousness initially, and then with love eventually, in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So the point I wanted to end with is just a realization I've had recently that we hear about so often, but just having the practical experience that if our relationships, even with devotees, are based on just material things, or that's the primary basis of our relationships, whether we're just talking about whatever, like, yeah, I guess just like chit-chatting about this and that. Of course, it's not to say, devotees shouldn't have some like recreation and just like relax a bit, and shoot the breeze, so to speak. But if that becomes, you know, you're trying to have very close friendships, basically, and that's the basis, it actually creates a lot of insecurity, um, on, yeah, in different ways. It creates insecurity. You might not feel it like how we usually use the word insecurity, like, oh, I'm so insecure, or like self-conscious. But it just there's like a dissatisfaction that creeps in, or like you're kind of looking at the other person in a sense for sense gratification, or like the minute you disagree about something, like let's say the basis of your relationship with another devotee is like, I don't even know, on based on like politics, or what other things could it be based on? I don't know, you both like the same basketball team or something like that. Then it's actually becomes very shaky ground, because the minute you disagree on something, then the relationship is like put on the line, at stake. And so it's an insecure kind of position. And we might see that with, okay, well, I see that with my um non-bhakti relations. I don't know, my quote unquote material relations. I've been thinking about it in the context of devotee relations, that actually to have a very secure relationship, with either with friends, partner, uh, parent, child, yeah, whatever, guru, disciple, um, yeah, whatever you, temple president, you, manager, you, then Krishna has to be in the center of that relationship. And again, it's something we hear so often, but it's nice to also have practical realization about it, that, oh, why am I feeling a little like dissatisfaction in this relationship, or some kind of insecurity, or just not like fully, the heart just feels a little bit off after even spending a lot of time with that person. And so just having the realization like, oh, it's because Krishna's got to be more there. Everything becomes so sweet, so secure. Like there's no doubts, there's no, yeah, like I said, no insecurities, no like wondering, okay, where's this person at? Where am I at in relation to each other? Like it's just everything becomes resolved when you put hearing and chanting about Krishna or service to Krishna in the center. It's just, it's beautiful, it's sweet, and it's like initially there might be, or it might creep in from time to time where it's like this enjoyment mentality comes into the relationship. And of course, like I said, devotees also, um, yeah, just like we're human beings. So I don't know, we might talk about like me and why or something, might talk about shampoos or I don't know, something. But like the predominating, basis of that relationship is how can we support each other in coming closer to Krishna? How can we establish a relationship based on loving exchanges, revealing the mind in a mood of, inquiring, um, and yeah, just supporting each other. Krishna Katha in the form of, here are the impediments to my bhakti. What do you think? They might just say, I think you should talk to somebody more qualified. I think you should talk to a mentor. They might give you advice. And then also just Krishna Gita, hearing and chanting together, talking about Krishna, even asking questions related to Krishna consciousness, like to find out about each other. Who are you most inspired by? What kind of lectures do you like to listen to? What's your favorite pastimes? What's like some experiences you've had in bhakti that have been super transformative, or that you've seen, Krishna's hand, or just there's so many things actually you can ask devotees, like your friends, even your partners if you have them, or yeah, your devotee parents or children or whoever, um, that actually like you get to find out so much about a person's heart in that way. Like even if you just ask questions like that, what was what were some of the most challenging times you had in bhakti that you overcame, or just yeah, anyway, they're just these kind of questions are like really you just get like a glimpse into this devotee's heart in a way that you could be spending every day with that person, and you never knew, like you're like, wow, that's actually. Or another one, I'll just end with this. So something some of you might remember, Radha Prasad, like her and Krishna Prasad lived here for a while. I don't remember, maybe like a year. Anyway, they're from New Zealand, but um she was saying that, well, specifically, she was saying this specifically in regards to, like a romantic partner, but it could be applied in friendships too, or any relationship amongst devotees. But she was saying that usually the mistake people make in relationships is that they basically they have an idea in their head that they want the other person to become who, mm, how do I say this? So many pronouns that they want them to be. So like let's say I'm, looking, let's just take a friendship, for example. I'll say me and Madhupan Leela. So if I'm looking at Madhupan Leela and the basis of the friendship is that I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, over time she'll become this person, like just based on who I think she should be, or I want her to be. But actually, that's, you're setting yourself up for so much disagreement, because as soon as that person does things that's not in tally with the way you think that they should be developing or the way you think they should be, then, then just disagreement or judgment or whatever comes in. But so Radha Prasad was making the point, she's like, really in a relationship, what should be there is that you both, you ask each other, who who do you want to become? Like who's the person that you want to become? And then assisting each other in becoming that version of themselves and becoming that person. And that was such a game changer for me. I'm like, wow, that would just resolve so much. And first of all, it resolves so much conflict. Second of all, it's like you're gaining entrance straight into that person's heart, because everybody, yeah, knows what it feels like, if you have some kind of service that's very dear to you, or so just some aspect of bhakti that's dear to you, or you're trying to move in a certain direction, developing a service or developing some part of yourself, and somebody assists you in that way. It's like, wow, they are in my good graces. Like I really appreciate this person, this, that, and the other. And I think naturally we attract friendships like that. But to apply it in, yeah, again, like a romantic relationship where maybe you're with that person every day, it's just it's such a nice like axiom or something to come back to that it's like, oh, I'm not trying to support this person just so that they become who I want them to be. You ask them, who, and it's like a deep conversation. You sit down for it, not just in passing. But who do you want to become even by the end of this life, or you could say in 10 years, 20 years, like that. And then you find out and you're like, wow, that just, first of all, it might be very surprising. And secondly, it's like then you have gained entrance right into that person's heart and then can, yeah, support each other in that way. So I just want to end with that about devotee relationships. Does anybody want, Seth, do you have any comments, questions? Okay. Anybody online have, I would really like to hear somebody's input, either the point, if anybody has thoughts on points I was making about raising children and how things are going in the modern age, and or about devotee relations. Oh, Hare Krishna. Is it James? Anyway, whoever iPhone one is.
Hare Krishna. Yes, yes. I don't know why he keeps doing that. Just changing my name. Yeah, very nice class. I had a not necessarily a question, maybe you can expand on it. Um, Regarding relationships. So, for example, this is a non-devotee relationship, which is my mother, for example.
Mhm.
And so I don't celebrate like Thanksgiving and stuff like that. It's been many years. So what I basically do, me and my mother will like sit down and like we like talked like a week ago regarding she was curious about Krishna consciousness. Like, oh, what is this? Oh, you were gone for like a very long time at this farm. And I was explaining things to her about it, and I could tell that she wasn't like you could like I could see on her face that she wasn't like accepting certain things I was saying. Now I wasn't saying anything too confidential, just kind of like, you aren't the body and stuff like this. And I mean that's fine. He doesn't practice, too deeply in religious practices. Um so I came to the conclusion based off like what it says in Shastra. So there's many points, like in Nectar of Instruction, it talks about abandoned association of devotees. But then you go to Bhagavatam, and then it talks about like Prabhupada talks about like for example, the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj when he's going back to Godhead with his mother, I believe. There's a purport where Prabhupada talks about, oh, you should honor your mother. And then you go to like Chaitanya Charitamrita and you have the pastime of Raghunath Das Goswami, and he's kind of like his family's much different because his family's devotees, but he kind of has this mood based off Lord Chaitanya's instructions, kind of remain attached, externally, but internally kind of remain detached. So like amalgamating all these things together, kind of like, my mother, she doesn't necessarily want to talk about deeper topics. So it's kind of like, if she, we have a conversation, I just kind of like, oh yeah, cool. But like, I don't really take it to internally, I guess, about, what is being discussed. I just kind of remain as best as I can aloof about it. I was just going to see if there's anything you can expand on this type of topic as far as relationships with, intimate, like immediate family members, yeah. Is there anything you can
Yeah.
expand on that?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a really good question and good point. And I totally hear yeah, it might be difficult or wanting to share Krishna consciousness with them, which is a really beautiful thing. And they might be inquiring as well. Anyway, there's a lot that could be said about this topic, but in brief, I think by and large, like, hmm, yeah, it's more rare that somebody's parent is really coming to them in like full submissive inquiry, like, no, my life is like you have to be in a pretty distressful condition, and then to be able to then inquire from your child, this person that you raised, like I'll just really quickly like Devamarita Swami, for example, I remember him giving this lecture where I guess he was like Radhanath Maharaj was also there, and Devamarita Swami's mother was there in the lecture. And I think, anyway, I'll just like make a long story short, but his mother, Devamrita Swami's mother, like asked a question. Devamrita Swami responded like some philosophical point or whatever in the class. She was just like, I don't know, it wasn't hitting. And then Radhanath Maharaj explained it, and she like totally accepted it. And she said that they she's like, why didn't you say that? He's like, I literally just said the same thing. But it's like you know, because that relation, you know, that person gave birth to you, like it's a different relationship. So it's very hard to hear at that point. So really with family, a lot it's from my experience, of course there's different like rare cases, people like make their parents devotees, this and that, but that you know we demonstrate by example, and sometimes it might take decades, sometimes it's not till the very end, like somebody's on their deathbed before they're like, you know what, say to their child like, you were right, like I know I gave you so much flack for your lifestyle, this and that, but then they see yeah, even at the time of death, like, oh, actually you're right, and I'm really like proud of you for what you did with your life. Will you chant for me? Something I've seen that happen like many times, even to Prabhupada disciples, you know, with their parents that are leaving their body, like they were against it their whole lives, even with sannyasis. And then at the last moment, they're on their deathbed, and the parents like super religious, and then they call up their devotee kid, and they're like, "Will you please like come chant for me?" So yeah, just get prasad, be, you know, be very respectful, be very nice. We shouldn't, yeah, if we try to like force philosophy on them, or even if we don't feel like we're forcing it, but just like pushing the point a lot, then it can actually have the opposite effect where it becomes, we feel like we're preaching, but actually it's unfavorable. It could be taking that person even more away from Krishna, because all they're hearing is, I'm losing my child to something that I don't understand. Also, you have to have the experience to be able to enter into bhakti. You can hear philosophy all you want, and it's amazing. We should hear philosophy, but Devamirta Swami also made this point to me because my dad got a Bhagavatam set, and my dad was reading it. But you know, he's a teacher. There's points in there that's like the slaughterhouse of modern education, this and that. He was getting like so hung up about the women point, like all kinds of things. And Devamirta Swami made the point to me. He's like, that you can't just understand Bhagavatam through your material intelligence. It's understood through devotional service. So to the degree, I just read this yesterday, to the degree that somebody's doing devotional service, that's the process for like unlocking the philosophy, and vice versa. So it feeds into each other. So anyway, that's my takeaway. To show them a lot of love, a lot of compassion. You could, if you like, you could even treat it like how you might sort of the people that you work with, you know, where it's like, okay, I understand that pretty much the way I'm going to preach to them is prasadam, and just by them seeing that I'm happy. And then if at some point your parent like really, you know, almost you can see like primarily that they'd be in a distressed position, like they just went through, for example, when my parents got divorced and my dad was like really like, you know, I want to try some chanting or this or that, then that's like an opportune moment. But if everything's quote unquote like good in their lives, then they might not be so receptive. Anyway, Venu, I don't know if you're raising your hand for a question or thought, but the doors are opening. I'm sorry. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
I just wanted to add. Anyway, I'll record your message on WhatsApp.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
agreeing with
Okay,
what Dina
Adibo.
Pralika said. Just want to add something else. Thanks.
Hare Krishna, Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you for your class, Dina.
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
Nanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vaishnava, Dharmas, Om Shiva, Vyasa, Vaimala, Vishkiva, Jaya Sri Bhagavatam, Yavatam Shiji, Raghunath Swami Kalsvara, Namatari Shri Ahodara, Sampurvi Jaya, Pranav Sapoke, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavatam, Shri Advaita Bhagavatam, Shri Abdul Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopis Shakam Radha Yoga Shri Maya Bhagavan Pijay, Shri Vrindavan Pijay, Vrindavan Pijay, Vrindavan Pijay, Shri Sandeep Tirthan Pijay, Ramchala Shri Madhvanti Bhagavan, Iskam Bhagavan, Tiru Vrindavan Pijay, Samvata Bhagavan Pijay, Gora Premi Lord, all those reasons to believe, Sri Sandeep all those who virtue were all virtue were